Let me tell you something. Life is all about choices. The people you choose to keep close and the ones you choose to cut off. Sometimes you do it because of pain. Other times you do it because of pride. But I want you to hear me clearly. When you cut off men you love from your life, he will never be the same. It doesn't matter how much time has passed, how much healing you think you've done, or how many apologies you've given. Cutting him off doesn't mean you've moved on. It means you've just closed the door on something that could have been beautiful, something that could have been real. You've taken away the chance for reconciliation, for growth. And let me tell you, he will never be the same. Now, you might think you're doing it for yourself. You might think you're making a statement, setting a boundary, showing him that you're strong, but what you're really doing is cutting off a part of yourself. Because love doesn't just disappear. It's not something you can erase or forget. It lingers. It changes. It shapes you. So when you cut him off, you also cut off a part of your own heart. You think you're protecting yourself, but all you're doing is building walls that will be harder to break down the next time love comes knocking. But here's the truth. He won't forget you. He won't forget the moments you shared, the memories that were made, and the love that was given. He'll carry that with him even if he doesn't show it. And when you cut him off, you are left with the weight of regret. Because it's not just about the relationship, it's about what could have been. Love is messy, it's complicated, it's full of mistakes and misunderstandings, but it's also full of chances. You see, when you cut him off, you stop him from having a chance to learn. You stop him from having a chance to grow, to show you who he could be. And you stop yourself from having a chance to see if you could ever really forgive or ever really heal. So, before you make that decision, before you make that call, remember this. Cutting someone off might feel like the right thing in the moment, but it may leave you with a lifetime of what-ifs. And trust me, when you cut off men you love from your life, he will never be the same. Life, in its simplest form, is a series of choices. Every decision, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, leads to a consequence that will eventually shape your path. And among the most powerful choices you'll ever make are those that concern the people you allow into your life and those you choose to remove. Think about it for a moment. When you choose someone, whether it's a partner, a friend, a family member, or even a mentor, you're not just accepting their presence in your life. You're allowing their influence to shape who you are. You're allowing their words, their actions, their energy to leave an imprint on your soul. So, who you choose to keep close matters more than we often realize. The people we surround ourselves with mold our character, test our values, and even influence our sense of self-worth. But what happens when you decide that someone is no longer part of your journey? When you make that conscious decision to cut someone out of your life, you're essentially declaring that their impact no longer aligns with your path, your growth, or your peace of mind. It's a choice made from a place of emotional understanding, even if that understanding is difficult to face. Cutting someone off is an action, a statement, a boundary you set when you feel that the energy or the connection you share with that person is no longer serving your best interests. In some cases, it's about protecting yourself from harm, emotional, psychological, or physical. In others, it's a decision made from self-respect, realizing that you deserve more than the relationship or the treatment that person is offering. However, what we often forget is that the people we choose to cut off hold a piece of our story. They were once part of our narrative, playing a role that helped us become who we are today. And while we may feel justified in making the decision to sever ties, it's essential to acknowledge that this decision doesn't just affect the other person, it affects us too. We have to live with the consequences of that choice. Every time we let go of someone we once cared about, we also let go of the potential of what could have been, what could have evolved, what lessons we could have learned, and what growth might have occurred if we had been able to navigate the relationship differently. And while it may be hard to admit, those decisions still weigh on us, even long after the person is gone from our lives. The people we choose to keep in our lives also become a mirror for who we are. They reflect our values, our principles, and our standards. Think about the friends you keep close. They reflect the side of you that values loyalty, understanding, and trust. They bring out your best qualities, or sometimes even challenge you to rise above your worst. In romantic relationships, the choices we make about who we invest in reveal what we desire most in life: love, respect, affection, and partnership. But it's not just the people we choose to keep that define us. It's also the people we choose to let go. Letting someone go can be an act of self-preservation, but it can also be an act of growth. There's strength in acknowledging when a relationship has run its course and when it's no longer contributing to our development. And that's a reflection of a person who has grown in wisdom and self-awareness. Every choice we make has a ripple effect. Cutting someone out of your life doesn't just stop with them. It impacts every other person you encounter and every future relationship you try to build. Each time you let go, you're teaching yourself something important about what you need in relationships and what you won't tolerate. And as painful as it may be, letting someone go is an essential part of learning to navigate your life with purpose. It teaches you the importance of boundaries and the value of self-respect. You learn that you can't keep everyone in your life just because they want to be there. Some people are meant to come into your life for a season, and others for a lifetime. And understanding the difference is key to your own emotional growth. But there's also a darker side to the choices we make. Every time we choose to cut someone off, there's a chance that the person we're walking away from may be hurting. Sometimes we fail to acknowledge that cutting someone out can leave them broken, confused, and angry. In some cases, that person might not understand why they've been discarded or what they've done to deserve it. They might even fight to stay, trying to repair what's been broken. The reality is, the people we love, the ones we care about, don't always understand why we make these decisions. And while it's our right to set boundaries, the emotional cost of cutting someone off can sometimes leave a scar that's not just theirs to carry. There's a balance here that must be considered. Ultimately, the people we choose to keep and those we decide to cut off leave an indelible mark on us. The friends who stand by you through thick and thin become the foundation on which your strength is built. The family members who love you unconditionally are the ones who remind you of who you are at your core. But the ones you walk away from, the ones you decide to cut off, also contribute to your growth. They teach you about your own resilience, about your own ability to set boundaries, and about the lessons you've learned about yourself through your interactions with them. These choices, no matter how painful, help define you, your values, and the person you are becoming. And when you look back on them, they will tell the story of how you navigated the most important relationships of your life and how those relationships ultimately shaped your character. So remember this: life isn't just a series of random encounters. The people you choose to keep and the ones you choose to cut off, they shape who you are, and those choices will stay with you for the rest of your life. Each one will leave a mark, a lesson, or a memory that defines the direction you choose to take. It's all part of the journey when you make the decision to cut someone off from your life. It often feels like an act of finality. It can feel like a definitive statement, like you're drawing a line in the sand and saying, "I'm done." In the heat of the moment, it seems like the only option, especially if the person has hurt you deeply or repeatedly. It's a form of self-protection, a way to preserve your mental and emotional peace. You may think that by cutting them off, you're freeing yourself from the weight of the relationship and from any emotional attachment. You may even convince yourself that by doing this, you're proving to yourself that you've moved on. But here's the thing: cutting someone off doesn't necessarily equate to moving on. It's a defensive maneuver, not a healing one. In truth, moving on isn't about erasing a person from your life. It's not about pretending they never existed or that they didn't matter. Moving on is a process, one that involves accepting what was, understanding the lessons, and gradually letting go of the emotional ties. And you can't do that by simply severing the connection. Cutting someone out of your life might make it easier to avoid confronting the pain, but it doesn't address the deeper issues that led to the situation in the first place. It doesn't help you understand why you allowed yourself to be hurt, or how you can learn from the experience. Cutting someone off may feel like a way to escape, but escaping doesn't heal you. Healing requires dealing with the emotions you're trying to avoid, and cutting someone off often just buries those emotions, making them harder to process later. When you choose to end a relationship, whether it's a friendship, romantic connection, or any meaningful bond, you are also shutting the door on any potential for reconciliation. Reconciliation doesn't just mean coming back together. It means understanding each other's perspectives, acknowledging what went wrong, and, if necessary, learning to forgive. There's no room for growth in a relationship if both people aren't given the chance to understand what happened, why it happened, and what changes need to be made to move forward. By cutting someone off without engaging in that process, you deny both yourself and them the opportunity to evolve. Without reconciliation, you're left with unfinished business, and those unresolved issues will linger, sometimes resurfacing in unexpected ways. True closure comes when both parties are able to reflect, learn, and, if possible, find a way to part amicably, whether that's by reconnecting or peacefully going your separate ways. Sometimes, we cut someone off because we're too hurt to see the possibility of healing. Emotions run high when there's betrayal or heartbreak. The pain becomes overwhelming, and in those moments the instinct is to protect ourselves, often by pushing the person who hurt us as far away as possible. But in doing so, we rob ourselves of the chance to grow from the experience. You see, relationships, even the painful ones, offer valuable lessons. They teach us about ourselves, about how we interact with others, and about what we need in a relationship. The hurt that comes from someone we love can be an eye-opening experience, one that challenges us to look inward and question our own actions, expectations, and boundaries. If we close the door completely, without ever processing those lessons, we may be missing out on an important step in our personal growth. The idea that cutting someone off automatically means you've moved on is a myth. Moving on involves working through the pain, understanding the hurt, and ultimately coming to a place of acceptance. It's a gradual process that can take time, patience, and introspection. Moving on isn't just about shutting a door. It's about healing the wounds so you're no longer held hostage by them. By cutting someone off, you might stop the cycle of pain in the short term, but you may not be addressing the emotional damage that remains. You might feel relief in the moment, but relief isn't the same as healing. Moving on requires confronting the emotions that are tied to the relationship, acknowledging them, and giving yourself the grace to heal. Moreover, cutting someone off creates an emotional distance that doesn't necessarily lead to emotional freedom. Often, when we cut someone off, we're creating a boundary to prevent further pain, but in doing so, we might inadvertently build emotional walls that keep us from experiencing true freedom. Freedom doesn't come from blocking out the people who have hurt us. It comes from being able to look back at those experiences without being overwhelmed by the emotions tied to them. It's about reaching a point where you can reflect on the relationship, the good and the bad, without it defining your future. Cutting someone off may temporarily remove the person from your present, but it doesn't erase the emotional baggage they left behind. You have to deal with that baggage if you want to fully move on. And let's not forget that relationships aren't always black and white. Sometimes people make mistakes, big mistakes, but that doesn't always mean they are beyond redemption. People can grow, learn, and change. If you shut someone out without ever giving them the opportunity to prove that they can change, you're not allowing room for that growth. Reconciliation, even in its simplest form, can be a powerful tool for both parties. It opens up a dialogue, an opportunity to understand, to express pain, and to offer forgiveness. Cutting someone off might feel like the easy way out, but it prevents you from experiencing the healing that comes from allowing both sides to communicate and work through their differences. In the end, the choice to cut someone off should never be made lightly. It's a powerful decision, but it's not always the final solution to the problem at hand. Moving on requires more than just the absence of a person. It requires the presence of understanding, forgiveness, and self-awareness. Cutting someone off might remove them from your life physically, but it doesn't always remove them from your heart or mind. True moving on means letting go of the emotional hold they have on you, something that can only happen through reflection, growth, and sometimes reconciliation. So, before you decide to cut someone off, ask yourself if you've really given yourself the chance to heal, to reflect, and to grow. Because moving on is not just about leaving someone behind, it's about leaving the pain behind as well. Love is one of the most powerful forces in the world. It can transform lives, make people better, and create unbreakable bonds. Yet, Love is also something that doesn't vanish easily, no matter how much you might wish for it to. You can try to forget it, to bury it beneath layers of pain and anger, but love has a way of lingering. It doesn't simply disappear just because you decide it should. It's a force that shapes you, changes you, and even defines parts of who you are. It's not something you can erase with a clean slate, and once it's been experienced, it becomes part of your story, whether you want it to or not. When you love someone, that person leaves an imprint on your heart, on your mind, and in your soul. It's not just about the moments shared, the laughter, or the happiness you experience together. Love isn't a fleeting emotion. It's not something you can quickly get rid of with a simple act of willpower. The emotions you feel for someone you've loved become part of your essence. You carry them with you, tucked into the corners of your thoughts, even when you try to push them away. The love you shared doesn't simply vanish just because the person is no longer in your life. In fact, it often becomes even more powerful after separation, because it's now untainted by the messiness of day-to-day life. It's pure in your mind, nostalgic, and perhaps even idealized. It's natural to want to move on, to let go of the pain that love can bring. But even when you try to cut someone off or forget them, the memories of that love stay with you. They become part of your fabric, woven into who you are. You may try to suppress those feelings, but love has a way of creeping back into your consciousness when you least expect it. A familiar scent, a song that plays on the radio, a place that reminds you of your time together. All of these things can bring the love back to the surface. And in those moments, you'll realize that the love you thought was gone hasn't really disappeared at all. It's just been dormant, waiting to resurface. And let's not forget the way love shapes the person you've become. The people you've loved, the relationships you've experienced, all contribute to your growth. They teach you lessons, help you discover your strengths, and reveal your vulnerabilities. Love makes you vulnerable in ways that nothing else can. It strips you down, forces you to confront your own insecurities, and makes you question who you are and what you need. But it also builds you up. It shows you your capacity for compassion, for forgiveness, for empathy. Even when that love fades, even when you've decided to move on, those lessons remain. They shape how you approach future relationships, how you interact with others, and how you view yourself. This is why trying to erase love is not only impossible, it's also unnecessary. Love, in all its complexities, doesn't need to be erased. It simply needs to be understood, processed, and integrated into your life. Love doesn't disappear, but the pain of love can fade over time. The trick is to acknowledge it, to allow yourself to feel it, and to understand that just because it lingers doesn't mean it has to control you. When you stop fighting against the lingering feelings and instead accept them, you can start to heal. The love that once hurt you can eventually become a source of strength, as it reminds you of the resilience you possess. It shows you that you've loved deeply, that you've allowed yourself to be open, and that you are capable of great emotional depth. There's also something beautiful in the way love lingers. While the initial pain of heartbreak or separation may be difficult to handle, love, when properly processed, can become a source of wisdom. The love you gave, the lessons you learned, and the growth you experienced because of it are things that no one can take from you. It's like a treasure that, even when buried under years of life struggles, will never lose its value. It shapes your future relationships, making you more capable of loving in a healthy, meaningful way. And the love you shared with someone else might still echo in your life, informing the way you connect with new people, teaching you what you truly need and what you are willing to give. Love, in its purest form, doesn't simply disappear when you cut someone off or end a relationship. It evolves. It takes on new meanings, and it helps shape who you are becoming. Even when someone is no longer in your life, love has a way of transforming into something that can guide you forward. It's like a marker in your personal growth, a reminder of where you've been and a compass for where you're headed. And when you recognize this, when you understand that love doesn't just vanish, you begin to see that your heart and your capacity to love are infinite. That love will always be a part of you, whether it's for a past partner, a friend, or even a family member, and it will continue to shape you in ways you may not even realize. The trick is learning how to let love evolve with you, how to take those feelings and experiences and use them to enrich your life moving forward. You may no longer be in love with the person you cut off, but the love you shared with them has undoubtedly shaped who you are, and it will continue to influence your relationships, your decisions, and your future. So instead of trying to erase it, embrace the way love lingers. Let it shape you into someone stronger, wiser, and more capable of experiencing the fullness of what love can offer. Because in the end, love doesn't disappear. It becomes a part of who you are, guiding you as you continue your journey. When you cut someone off from your life, whether it's a romantic partner, a friend, or even a family member, it may feel like a necessary and protective action. In the heat of the moment, you might think that removing them from your life entirely is the only way to move forward, to shield yourself from further pain. But what you often fail to realize is that by shutting them out, you are also shutting down a part of yourself. Every relationship, good or bad, leaves its mark on us. The love, the experiences, the shared memories, all of it becomes part of who you are. Cutting someone off may seem like an act of self-preservation, but in reality, it's a process that can cause you to sever ties with a part of yourself too. You can't simply remove someone from your life without also losing a piece of the relationship that once was. The moment you choose to cut someone off, you are creating emotional walls. You may think that these walls are there to protect you, but what you may not realize is that these walls can also block you from healing, from growing, and from building future connections. When you close the door on one person, it doesn't just close that chapter. It closes off the potential for emotional vulnerability with others, too. Vulnerability is essential for connection. It's what allows us to be real, to share our fears and dreams, to connect with others on a deeper level. But when you shut someone out, you are essentially telling yourself that being vulnerable is dangerous, that exposing your heart is something to be avoided, and over time, those walls become more impenetrable, making it harder to open up to the people who genuinely want to connect with you. The walls you build after cutting someone off often come from a place of fear. Fear of being hurt again, fear of disappointment, and fear of rejection. But what you fail to see in the moment is that these walls also keep out the possibility of true healing. You see, healing requires openness. It requires the willingness to confront your pain, to reflect on the lessons learned, and to give yourself the space to grow. When you close yourself off, you stop that process from happening. The pain may subside temporarily, but without addressing it, you may find yourself stuck in emotional limbo. The walls you've built act as a barrier to your own healing, keeping you from truly moving forward and becoming stronger. These walls also prevent you from seeing the potential for future connections, even in the same person you've cut off. In many cases, relationships don't end in the way we imagine. People make mistakes, they learn, and they grow. When you close the door on someone without giving them a chance to evolve, you may be blocking not only the possibility of reconciliation with them, but also the potential for new growth in your own life. Relationships, especially meaningful ones, are full of ups and downs. And while some people may not deserve a second chance, others may surprise you with their growth and understanding. If you build walls around your heart every time someone hurts you, you may miss the chance to allow them to show you a new side of themselves, one that aligns with who you've become. What's even more dangerous about the walls you create is that they can begin to extend beyond that one relationship. Once you've experienced hurt and you've built walls to protect yourself, it becomes easier to do it again and again. You start shutting people out, not just the one who hurt you, but anyone who could potentially hurt you. You become guarded, cautious, and distant, even from those who genuinely care about you. In doing so, you not only limit your own personal growth, but also prevent others from experiencing the real, vulnerable, and open version of you. You stop allowing people to see the authentic you, the version that is capable of deep connection, trust, and love. And without this, your relationships may become shallow, disconnected, and ultimately unfulfilling. Another layer of this is how these emotional walls affect your ability to experience true intimacy in future relationships. If you've cut someone off in the past because of pain and you've built walls to protect yourself, you may find it difficult to allow someone else to get close to you in the same way. Intimacy requires trust, and trust requires vulnerability. But if you've become accustomed to shutting people out, you may find that you are unable to fully open yourself up to anyone else. The walls that you once thought were protecting you are now barriers to your happiness and fulfillment. Without vulnerability, intimacy becomes impossible, and without intimacy, any relationship will remain shallow and ultimately unfulfilling. You may also begin to realize that cutting someone off doesn't resolve everything, it just creates a false sense of closure. When you sever ties with someone, especially without confronting the issues that led to the fallout, you are often left with unresolved emotions. You might tell yourself that cutting them off will make the pain go away, but in reality, it only pushes the pain deeper. Over time, those unresolved emotions turn into bitterness, regret, or even anger. They start to eat away at you, blocking your emotional well-being and preventing you from being at peace with the past. The longer you leave these emotions unresolved, the harder it becomes to heal. In essence, cutting someone off without addressing the issues means you're choosing to live in a state of emotional stagnation, unable to move past the pain and fully embrace your own personal growth. Lastly, cutting someone off doesn't just mean cutting them out of your life. It also means cutting them out of your emotional narrative. The person you cut off was once a part of your journey. They shared in your experiences, your highs and your lows. And while it may seem easier to simply remove them from the story, you can't erase the impact they had on you. The experiences you shared, the lessons you learned, and even the mistakes you made together are a part of your own growth. When you shut them out, you also shut down your ability to learn from those moments. In trying to forget them, you may unintentionally rob yourself of valuable insights that could help you in future relationships. Cutting someone off doesn't just mean severing ties with them. It means you're also severing your own connection to the lessons that person provided, and that can hold you back from evolving into the person you are meant to be. By cutting someone off, you're essentially building walls around yourself. Walls that keep others at a distance, walls that keep your heart locked away, and walls that prevent you from experiencing true healing and growth. These walls might provide temporary comfort, but in the long run, they limit your potential for emotional connection, personal growth, and future happiness. The key to healing and moving forward lies not in shutting people out, but in confronting the pain, breaking down the walls, and allowing yourself to experience the vulnerability that comes with love, connection, and the possibility of future growth. The idea of cutting someone off as a form of protection is something we all entertain at one point or another, especially when we've been hurt. It feels like the quickest way to put distance between us and the pain, to stop the emotional bleeding, and to give ourselves space to breathe. But there's a dangerous fallacy in this thinking. You can't truly heal what you refuse to confront. Cutting someone off may provide immediate relief from the situation at hand, but in doing so, you're avoiding the painful process of self-reflection, growth, and healing that comes from confronting the hurt. Healing isn't about running away from the pain. It's about looking it in the face, acknowledging its existence, and dealing with it head-on. When we try to avoid or shut out pain, we're not giving ourselves the opportunity to learn from the experience. Emotional wounds are not unlike physical wounds. If you cut yourself and just cover it up without cleaning it or allowing it to heal, the injury will fester and the healing process will be longer, more painful, and more complicated. The same is true for emotional pain. If you simply shut the door on someone you've loved or cut them out of your life without addressing the hurt they caused, the pain doesn't just disappear. It remains buried deep inside, festering, and potentially affecting your future relationships. You may think that by removing the person, You're eliminating the issue, but you're only postponing the necessary work of healing and moving forward. Healing begins when we're willing to confront our emotions, even the ones we'd rather not face. Yes, it's painful. Yes, it can feel like an overwhelming task, but only by acknowledging the hurt can we begin to understand where it came from, how it has affected us, and what it can teach us. Every painful experience carries within it a lesson about trust, boundaries, self-worth, or the way we allow others to treat us. If we don't allow ourselves to process the hurt and understand what went wrong, we're doomed to repeat the same patterns in future relationships. We won't have learned the necessary lessons and will continue to make the same mistakes. But when we take the time to confront the pain and reflect on it, we can gain valuable insights that help us make better decisions, set healthier boundaries, and ultimately become more resilient in the face of adversity. In the absence of confronting our emotions, we build up walls around our hearts and minds. These walls aren't just about protecting ourselves from the person we've cut off. They're about protecting ourselves from any future pain. We start to believe that if we avoid feeling the hurt, we won't have to face the vulnerability that comes with it. But this avoidance only leads to stagnation. Instead of moving forward, we end up stuck in the same emotional place, unable to heal, grow, or evolve. Pain is a natural part of the human experience, and it's not something we can simply wish away. The more we suppress it, the stronger it becomes, and the harder it is to deal with down the road. There's also the risk of carrying unresolved pain into new relationships. If we've cut someone off without processing the hurt they caused, we're essentially carrying that emotional baggage with us. This baggage can manifest in new relationships, even if the new person has nothing to do with the previous pain. We may find ourselves becoming overly cautious, mistrustful, or unable to fully open up to someone new. We may even project past hurt onto future partners, unfairly expecting them to hurt us in the same way, even if they have no intention of doing so. If we don't allow ourselves to heal and process the pain of past relationships, we remain chained to that hurt, unable to break free and embrace the possibilities of new connections. Confronting the pain also means taking accountability for our role in the situation. This doesn't mean blaming ourselves for everything, but it does mean recognizing how we may have contributed to the breakdown of the relationship, whether through our actions, words, or lack of communication. Healing isn't just about pointing fingers at the other person. It's about understanding our own part in the story. By doing so, we gain clarity on how we can show up differently in future relationships. We learn how to be more mindful of our own needs, how to express our emotions more effectively, and how to protect ourselves while still being open to connection. Healing doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens when we acknowledge the full picture and take responsibility for our part in it. Many people think that cutting someone off is the way to stop the hurt, but in reality, it can perpetuate the cycle of emotional damage. The refusal to confront pain often leads to greater resentment, bitterness, and emotional numbness. Over time, this can make it difficult to trust anyone, to let people into your life, or to feel the depth of emotion that makes life meaningful. It's only by confronting the hurt head-on, by allowing ourselves to feel it, understand it, and learn from it, that we can truly heal and move on. Healing is a journey, and it requires patience, self-compassion, and the courage to face the parts of ourselves that we would rather not deal with. But it is a necessary step to freeing ourselves from the past and moving forward into a future that's not defined by past wounds. The other aspect of confronting the pain is understanding how it shapes you moving forward. Every emotional experience, whether positive or negative, teaches us something valuable. Even the most painful situations contain lessons that can help us grow stronger, wiser, and more self-aware. If we don't take the time to confront the pain, we miss out on these opportunities for growth. Healing isn't just about feeling better. It's about becoming a more evolved version of ourselves. When we're willing to face the pain head on, we are giving ourselves the chance to emerge from it stronger and more capable of navigating the complexities of future relationships. We begin to see that pain isn't something to avoid, it's something to learn from. Ultimately, the refusal to confront pain is a refusal to grow. Healing requires active participation, self-reflection, and vulnerability. Cutting someone off might seem like the easy way out, but it's only a temporary solution to a much deeper issue. To truly heal, we need to face the pain, confront our emotions, and allow ourselves the time and space to process what has happened. Only then can we move forward. Not with baggage and unprocessed hurt, but with clarity, strength, and the wisdom to handle future challenges with grace. Healing takes work, but the rewards, peace, growth, and emotional freedom are worth the effort. We often view cutting someone off as a way to reclaim control, to protect ourselves from further hurt. In theory, it's a quick fix, a decisive action that creates a boundary between us and the person who's caused us pain. But the reality is that cutting someone off is often more damaging to the person doing the cutting than it is to the one being cut off. While it may seem like an act of strength or empowerment, it can actually have profound emotional consequences for you, the one making the decision. What you don't realize in the moment is that severing ties, no matter how justified it might feel, comes with its own set of emotional costs that may weigh on you much more than you expect. When you cut someone out of your life, you're not only letting go of the relationship you had with them, you're also severing a part of your emotional support system. Even if that person caused you pain or disappointment, they were once a source of connection, understanding, or companionship. They had a place in your life. In removing them from that space, you're not just eliminating them, you're also eliminating the emotional connection, the comfort, and the familiarity that comes with knowing someone. Relationships, especially close ones, are built on shared experiences, mutual trust, and emotional investments. When you cut someone off, you are also cutting away the potential for healing, for closure, and for understanding that might help you move on. Instead of allowing time to process the emotions involved, you choose to forcefully create a void, and in doing so, you leave yourself exposed to deeper feelings of loss and loneliness. The pain of cutting someone off can be much greater than anticipated because it requires you to confront your own emotions. You may think you're doing the right thing, taking a strong stand, but deep down, the emotional toll starts to take its toll on your psyche. Feelings of guilt, regret, and confusion can cloud your judgment, leaving you wondering if you did the right thing. You may question whether you acted too hastily or if in fact you were simply running away from the difficult task of resolving your emotions. While the other person may move on with their life, you're left with the burden of emotional dissonance. The act of cutting someone off rarely provides the kind of closure we imagine. Instead of feeling liberated, you often feel a deep emptiness or sadness that doesn't go away as easily as you might think. The emotional wound you inflicted on yourself can be more harmful because it's self-imposed, a decision you made out of fear or anger rather than out of true healing. Additionally, there is a psychological cost to the act of cutting someone off, especially when that decision isn't made with clarity or emotional preparedness. When you shut someone out, you can't help but wonder if you've made a mistake, if there was something left unresolved that could have led to healing. This uncertainty eats away at your peace of mind, keeping you tethered to the situation in a way you didn't anticipate. You might find yourself replaying events in your mind, wondering if you were too quick to judge, too hasty in making the decision to sever ties. Even if the relationship was unhealthy, the act of cutting them off can bring unresolved emotional debris to the surface. It's like placing an emotional band-aid over a wound without addressing the infection underneath. Sure, the wound may seem closed off, but the pain persists, and often it festers beneath the surface. Moreover, cutting someone off can often put you in a state of emotional isolation. By removing someone you loved or cared about from your life, you may unintentionally isolate yourself from the emotional support that you need in difficult times. People who are close to you can provide solace, a listening ear, and understanding during tough times. When you cut someone off, especially without fully processing the emotions involved, you also create a sense of emotional distance from others. You might become reluctant to open up to anyone else, fearing that they too might hurt you in the same way. As a result, you start to build emotional walls that block the possibility of forming new connections, making it harder to let anyone else into your life. The fear of future pain keeps you trapped in a cycle of emotional avoidance, robbing you of the healing and growth that comes from sharing and being vulnerable with others. In addition, cutting someone off without truly resolving the issue can lead to a deep sense of regret later on. After some time has passed, the initial anger or hurt you felt may dissipate, but the regret of not having confronted the situation more maturely may linger. You might start to feel that you've lost an opportunity to reconcile, to have a meaningful conversation, or to heal together. There's an emotional cost to avoiding resolution, one that becomes more apparent as time goes on. You might realize that instead of cutting them off, a conversation, some closure, or a chance to forgive might have been the path to true peace. Now, you're left with the possibility of regret, constantly questioning whether you could have handled the situation differently. This lingering regret is what makes the act of cutting someone off more painful for you than for them. While they may be going about their life free of the emotional weight you're carrying, you're left holding the burden of what could have been. You might think that cutting someone off is the easiest way to protect yourself, but in truth, you're only prolonging your own pain. The decision to cut someone out of your life without fully addressing the emotions involved is like placing an emotional roadblock in your path, keeping you from moving forward in the healthiest way possible. Eventually, cutting someone off can make you question your own capacity for forgiveness and growth. When you make the decision to shut someone out, you're essentially closing yourself off from the opportunity to heal and mature. It might seem like a quick fix to avoid dealing with the pain, but in the long run, it prevents you from becoming a more empathetic, understanding, and resilient person. The ability to forgive, to resolve conflicts, and to process emotions in a healthy way are the true markers of emotional growth. By cutting someone off in the heat of the moment, you might temporarily stop the pain, but you also deprive yourself of the chance to learn from the situation and move forward as a more evolved individual. In the end, the pain of cutting someone off is often more damaging to you because it's an action driven by avoidance, fear, and unresolved emotion. Instead of healing, you're postponing the necessary emotional work. You might find yourself carrying that pain for much longer than expected, wondering whether the decision was truly worth it. By avoiding the tough conversations, the emotional work, and the possibility of growth, you're essentially closing off part of your own heart. And that kind of emotional self-sabotage can be far more damaging than any hurt the other person could ever cause you. When you find yourself standing at the crossroads of deciding whether to cut someone out of your life, understand that it's not a simple or easy choice, but it is one that can ultimately set you free. It's not about being cold, harsh, or unforgiving. It's about protecting your peace, your well-being, and your future. Sometimes, in order to grow, to heal, and to step into the person you're meant to become, you have to let go of what no longer serves you. The people who truly belong in your life will respect your boundaries, they'll understand your worth, and they'll stand by you in ways that help you elevate and evolve. The ones who don't, well, they were never meant to stay. Don't be afraid to make the hard decisions, because you deserve relationships that bring out the best in you, not the ones that drain you, confuse you, or keep you stuck. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. It's about knowing when to walk away from what hurts and when to stand tall in the face of uncertainty, trusting that doing so will bring you closer to the peace and happiness you deserve. So, if you're facing the weight of this decision, remember, it's not just an ending. It's a new beginning. One where you learn to trust yourself, to trust your journey, and to believe that the best is yet to come. The strength to cut someone off isn't about being tough. It's about being strong enough to protect your heart, your mind, and your soul. And that strength will always lead you to where you need to be.